Welcome to the Globetrottin ADs. This podcast is for you, athletic directors, activity coordinators, coaches, and program associates based in international schools around the world. The Globetrottin ADs is proudly hosted by Nick DeForest from the American International School Vienna and Matt Fleming from the American International School of Budapest. Here they are now, Nick and Matt and the Globetrottin ADs.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Globetrottin ADs. We are here now in the late spring season and chugging right along as we get ready to get to the end of the year. But we still have another episode or two to offer, and we're happy to have a cool episode today. We're going to talk about athletic culture shock, and we have a few guests today who are either back in the North America or heading that way soon. And we're going to find out about the differences of what it's like to kind of go back to the U.S. or the North American setting after being in the overseas international school setting for sports. So we're happy to have Dave Horner joining us, as well as Christof Wegiel from Austria. I hope I pronounced that correctly, Christof.
Yeah, Wegiel, but yeah, no worries.
Wegiel, okay. And before we get into that, though, I'll throw it over to Nick in Vienna. How you doing, Nick?
Yeah, Matt, great. Thanks for that. Thanks, guys. This should be good. Some funny, maybe examples too of what it's like coming overseas. So really, maybe a more interesting episode for someone who hasn't been overseas yet. We all come over for the first time, and things are not always like they were at home. So thanks, Christof, for the idea, and glad to have you on. Christof, why don't you fire away and tell us, everybody knows Dave. Dave, this is episode 14. Dave needs no introduction. But Christof, you're a newbie. So say hello, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you first, Matt and Nick, for having me on the podcast. It's a great honor. I'm originally American, but moved to Austria about 8 years ago. So 2015, I moved to Austria. Just wanted something different. My mom is actually Austrian, so I have some family in the southern part of Austria, and I've just been working in international schools for the last 5 to 6 years now, and my last two to 3 years now has been mainly focusing on after-school activities, but also athletic directing for Danube International School of Vienna. So we're kind of close to Nick, and we do play against him a few times, and also in tournaments we play against Matt's team as well. So we kind of all know each other through that. So it's been good just knowing them and getting to play them as well in those tournaments and stuff. So
super. All right, man. Thanks. Glad to have you on. What, another DVAC colleague, right? We're going around the circuit, so let's see who we can pull up next. Let's go. I mean, international first time back home, whether it's Britain for you, Dave, or in the States, or Canada for me. It's usually a lot different, a lot more competitive, and some other things. So, Dave, what do you think? What stood out for you when you first went to an international school?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, guys. I really appreciate it. I think one of the biggest things for me that I really didn't realize when I got into international teaching is that in a lot of these cities where our schools are located, we might be the only or the biggest international school in that area. And when you're talking about competition, in order to be competitive as a school or to have players to understand competition, you have to have games. And if there are not 10, 15 schools located within your district or your region, who are you playing? So you're waiting for that end of season tournament, whether it's through CISA or whichever division you're in, you're waiting for that tournament to go and play 6 games over the course of 2 days. And they might be the only games that you play for the entire season with that team, unless you play against alumni or against the teachers, or maybe they play the varsity plays the JV. But if you're talking about competition, when you're in a country like the UK or like the US, they have scheduled games against rivals that are local, and then they have regional competitions, they have district, they have national competitions. These things are scheduled like a year in advance. They already know all the teams they're going to play, and all those teams are going to be at a certain level of competition. And that's great for the kids that are on your team, because they're getting multiple opportunities to reach a new level of competition for them, right? A new level of success, whatever that's going to be. And for us in the international scene, you might not have that many schools around you. So who are you playing? Are you playing the local club team, who probably are going to be extremely good and they have all the best players in the city, and you're inviting them over for a game?
Yeah.
I think that's always been, that was my biggest sort of aha moment coming overseas.
Yeah. And it depends where you go too. Like like you're saying, like you might be in a place like Shanghai where there's its own little city league, right? But it's also not so easy, because as I understand, a lot of schools have to travel quite far to each other to get into that city or play each other for city league games. We're lucky here this year, or the last couple of years in Budapest, there's now about 6-7 international schools who we can regularly organize games with. That's worked out really good. And we even organized some like city tournaments, you could say. We called the Budapest Cup for volleyball, and we did one for basketball as well. So we've been fortunate for that, but it took some time to put together, but I think now it's in a good place and good shape. But yeah, it depends where you are. You could also be in a place like, for example, maybe in Ulaanbaatar, or maybe over there in Kyrgyzstan, where you're not gonna probably have that kind of opportunity. So like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to get creative to give those kids some kind of competitive opportunity?
Right. Yeah. For me, for that exact thing, is it's not equal for every team, right? So you have lots of schools, or we have club teams that mesh up, and varsity soccer get tons of games, and then my high school softball team gets 2.
Yeah.
So it's not equal across the board.
For sure. Like my big struggle right now is boys softball. We have softball here, and Nick, you guys have baseball, and our boys softball, it's just, trying to organize inter-squad games. We had like a little in-house tournament. It was a lot of fun. The kids had a good time with it, even a good turnout. But that's the only one. That's our biggest struggle right now, is trying to get some games for these guys. They do have an end-of-season tournament. They're going to go to Prague this week. Our high school boys are going up there for the SKIS tournament, and the middle schoolers will go the following weekend. But that's the toughest one. But program-wise, it's still in good position. We got good numbers for kids coming out, and they really love it. They really come out and have a good time with it, and they're learning the skills and learning the basics of the game. So that's good, especially as a North American, having a baseball background and seeing kids enjoying playing that game. That's been a lot of fun to see.
Sure. Well, Christof, what about you? Aha moment, one thing that stood out right off the bat for you?
Yeah, well, especially me coming from the U.S. and also playing at a high level, especially with soccer at the U.S. and also played, baseball as well in those when I was smaller and stuff in 8th grade and stuff, and just coming internationally and I feel like the level is so different. Like in the U.S., you start like when you're at 5 years old, just playing different teams, playing town teams and stuff like that, right, in the U.S. And then when you come internationally, I mean, like, especially at the middle school level, for example, it's like these kids have never touched a ball, or like, you're just pretty much starting from the basics, in a sense. You're like, oh my gosh, like in the US, that's already like they've already learned the basics and they're already like competing and stuff. And so I felt always that was like the challenge, where it's like if I got a 6th grader coming in and I'm like, all right, and he's new to the game, whether it's basketball or baseball or soccer, or even like volleyball, for example, it's like I got 3 years to kind of get the basics down for him, so that when he moves up then to the high school level, we can already somewhat can compete against, a lot of those other schools. And especially coming from a smaller school where I work at, it's a lot more difficult to kind of have those kids start at that lower level. And so sometimes we even look, to start even in 4th and 5th grade, to kind of have like a training once a week at least for them, that they're somewhat getting the basics down, or learning the basics, so that once they get to the middle school level, that they can kind of kind of develop a lot quicker in a sense. And so I think that was always like, for me, I think that was a huge shock for me when I first came, because I started with coaching middle school at first before I started coaching varsity and everything. And at the middle school level, I'm like, these guys can't even control the ball. Like I was expecting them to control the ball and passing, and we can work on formation and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I got to start from scratch. Like I got to start from ground zero and work that way up. So that for me was kind of difficult in the beginning
Sure.
to kind of learn that and everything. So
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we have international businessmen and women, right? And may have not been athletes. A lot of people working in high-powered jobs, and let's just say they're not always that athletic. So then their children who are also living internationally, they might not get that athletic gene, right? But you need them. You need them to play and have teams. That was a good funny story for me in the first year. Was a mom at the end of the year told me how happy she was that they moved, because in America her daughter would not be on any team, probably wouldn't have tried out, and she got to play on 3 varsity teams, and she was so bad. She was so bad, but she tried hard. She was on every team. She had the best year ever. So it's great, but it's when you have when you use other things.
On the flip side, like, do you ever get people who are saying like, man, we need to be more competitive. Like we need more.
Yeah.
We need more for these kids. We need more training. We need to do year-round sports. We need to do bring in some outside coaches, some experts and club people that we can get more opportunity. That was then you get that opportunity. You get that end of the spectrum too, I think,
right.
which can be
right.
A challenge. Like, well, where do you want to go with this, and how much time can you actually put in as an athletic director to make those things happen?
Right.
So.
And that varies on your city too, right? Like, for Christof and I in Vienna, they have clubs and everything. And for the most part, people speak English and will welcome English speakers, But Budapest, I don't know. Dave, you've been in some crazy places too, like all the comparisons of different cities that you've been in.
Well, I was actually going to piggyback on what Christoph said, just in terms of like, those students maybe didn't have that sort of, I guess, development of coming up through a sport from a young age with good coaching and their friendship groups around them that were sort of growing with them and developing team structures, and that sort of molded into middle school and then high school. I think one of the things that was kind of tricky in the places where I've lived is that not all of the countries that I lived in could you go as an English speaker and join a local club team, right? Because they didn't necessarily welcome. Well, it's not that you weren't welcome; you just didn't understand what was going on. I mean, if you didn't speak the language, then you're just kind of there, and the coach is, telling you what to do in a foreign language that you don't necessarily understand or know. But because you're like a high achieving player in a certain sport, you want that external sort of stimuli of that better team, that better competition than what you're going to get at the school level. So you want to go and get that, but at the same time, there's like challenges to go and doing that as a 14, 15-year-old student.
Yeah, absolutely. And as an adult to mix into a club team is hard enough, but then you have like, a teenager, is just not going to go out and put themselves on a limb like that, right? Yeah.
And another thing I want to mention as well with in regards to like club players, I think what was difficult too sometimes is that you had like some of those players who played club but were going to your school, and you're trying to get them on the team. You're like, hey, come join the team and stuff like that, and they're like, no, I'm too busy, I can't do both, and I'll just stay with my club. And it's like you're like missing out on a really good player that could potentially really improve your team in a sense and kind of raise that level, but you kind of lose them out to club teams, in a sense, and that's sometimes difficult too, to kind of balance that in a sense,
Yeah, we've had issues like that too, where the coach won't let them, the club coach won't allow them to join the school team, or they, it's just too complicated for their schedules to line up. And we've run into that for tennis, for example, too. Like we have some really good kids who would be awesome to send off to the tournament, but they just can't make our trainings, and so sometimes we have to let those kids go because they simply couldn't do it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting as well that with the club players as well, like in the States, for example, I did track and field for the school, but then I'd play like club for soccer in a sense, and I do both. And so it's like interesting to also see that aspect of like, well, why can't you do both in a sense, like you know, in the States they're able to do it, and so I think it's just like that expectation or the club, I guess either player or coach doesn't want them because they don't want to get injured and stuff, which I all understand that whole aspect of it. But I think also the kids are missing out in the sense of that kind of friendship and bonding that happens, especially at the school level. I mean, one of my favorite memories is always when I was with my soccer players and my teammates, playing for the high school team, playing for the school team in a sense. And those are my most favorite memories,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, they usually come around, the locals, right, into that. Is that, keep at them, right? That's the thing, keep at them. Maybe not this year, but then the next year. I think for me, what stood out for me was the hardest to realize was that the people move so frequently. And I really struggled at the beginning, and I kept thinking like, oh, we're going to develop this guy, who's a baseball coach, develop this catcher. And, I got him really, really where he needed to be, was an all tournament in 9th, 10th grade. It's like, yeah, man, this guy, they're getting older, and then poof, they're gone. So it had that happen to me a couple times. Like, what do you mean you're moving? Like I just didn't. What you're going into 11th grade. Why would you move now? Just to realize that the turnover is so big, and you have to adapt, right? Now it's just season to season. When everyone says like, oh, next year you're gonna be so good, like don't worry about next year. Right now, this is all you got, and go for it. So that was my hardest thing for sure too.
Like we said before, catching lightning in a bottle. That's that could be your international school sports season sometimes.
Oh man, the one guy that moves in, like Christmas break, you get a 6 foot 11th grader move in, and then your basketball season just turned around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think another interesting aspect, just last thing, is also the schedules, like the schedule time for practices. Yeah. For me, that was a big shock too, because in the States, you're practicing every single day, and you have a game usually on the weekend or whatever, or a game, during the week. And here it's then like, twice a week or 3 times a week. And you're like, okay. And it's like, I got middle schoolers who can't even kick a ball yet, and you're telling me now I have to practice only twice a week, And I like the idea of like, usually they say if you're practicing twice a week, you're just maintaining, right? And then if you practice 3 times a week or more, then you're finally building on that. And so it's like, see, we got to get more practices in and stuff like that. But it's like a lot of times it's like, no, we can only get 3 practices in a week or 2 practices in a week, because even the parents then are like, no, that's too much for him or whatever. And it's like, what are you talking about? In the US, like we, from August, beginning of August for the fall season, at least from the beginning of August all the way through sometimes mid-December, you're in season practicing every single day with the game also, throughout the week or on the weekends. So that was kind of a shock for me too.
Yeah, one creative thing our volleyball coach has done this year, or this spring, I should say, our middle school girls volleyball coach. She actually runs a Wednesday lunchtime volleyball session. And it's just open, anybody can come, but usually, usually all the kids who play volleyball will come to it because it's an extra chance to play. And it's a little more structured than just turning up at lunch recess. So in a way, it's kind of an extra training, and it's also a way to keep the sport going. It's worked out pretty good. When kids remember to go down, of course, because middle school kids can be at lunchtime, but that's one like bonus I think we've been able to get out of this season is this coach offering that and getting the kids a little more exposure, a little more touches, right? And it's structured, and that's good.
Cool. Matt, you've been there a long time. Is there anything you're still struggling with that was different than the States, or have you overcome and adapted quickly?
Well, having never been an athletic director in the U.S. to begin with, I would say it's still, being an international school AD it's a great job, and I love it. And it's fun and it's different every day. And but I think the biggest thing is the frequency and the intensity of the trainings are a little bit different. Not so much the intensity, but the frequency, right?
Yeah.
It's just not your average basketball season, for example. You're not going to get, if you get 20 games for a season in international school, that's pretty awesome. That's including all your tournaments or going away for festivals and getting multiple games in one day. Whereas, instead of having a twice a week, Tuesday, Friday schedule at normal high school basketball teams will get in the U.S. So that's still like the one thing for me. I don't think we'll ever get to that's different than the U.S. And the amount of people you get out for games, you don't have crowd control. Of course, we all know that, those kind of things. But I think what we can do is pretty good. I think our varsity boys or girls basketball teams manage to get 16, maybe 18 games. That's pretty good for international school, I think.
Yeah.
Good variation of teams to play, and not having to play the same team like 4 times in a year, which happens. 3,
we played each other 3 times
Yeah.
for basketball. Yeah, but I mean, hey, those are good games for sure.
But yeah, good competition, good rivalry games.
Dave, you mentioned competition was your thing. How'd you get over that in some of those places you went to?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, what we were able to do quite a lot of times is we would partner with local club teams, but we definitely wouldn't play with the same age level that we were going to be playing with. So if, for example, I wanted my varsity team to play, we'd ask like the U15, U16 team from that competitive club team to come play against us, because that was really the level.
Yeah.
And even then we'd still lose those games.
Sure.
But that was really where we were at. And it just comes, you talking about opportunities to practice and places to play. It comes down to that. It's how many times a week can you get those students to come to practice, when really what we're trying to do within international schools is to tie bows to their resume, so that when they go to university, they've got all of these other experiences that are going to add to their academic, career. And that's really the types of students that we're pushing out of international schools. There's very few international school students that I can think of that have deliberately gone and got a college scholarship, D1, D2, D3, playing sports.
Yeah.
Most of them are going for an academic scholarship, an overseas scholarship to go and do something else within business or within art or whatever it is.
Yeah.
They're not pushing for those sports scholarships. So, playing down levels, making sure that they have an opportunity to play, that's really helped us stay competitive. Getting good coaching in, making sure that you have good coaches at the varsity level who can then feed down to those coaches who are in the middle school and the elementary school, because oftentimes those coaches, they're teachers. They don't necessarily have all the skills and the tools to be able to do that for those kids. And I think those 2 things have been really important, and especially in places where I haven't had the opportunity to go out and play 4, 5, 6 different schools, and I'm just waiting for that end of season tournament.
Right. Crazy. What about you, Christof? At DIS, something that stuck out that you've changed or that you could adapt to? I mean, you mentioned athletic ability was your one thing, but
yeah. I think one thing that I also have just had to adapt a little bit is just lower my expectations a little bit. I think I came in when I first started as an AD or as a coach as well, because I first started coaching before I came an AD, is that I had really high expectations, right? And I was just like, we're going to be here and we're looking to win and stuff like that. And I think lowering those expectations over the years and kind of just like, guys, I just want you to show up to practice. Like that's the bare minimum, and show up, prepared, ready to go, and you're head in the game. I get a funny story I guess I can tell is when I first started coaching, I was coaching at a small school, and they were trying to change the culture a little bit at that school. And first or second training, I had a kid, 11th grader, come up to me, and he was in jeans and like just normal street clothes.
Yeah.
He's like, "Hey coach, can I practice?" And I was like, "Are you kidding me right now?" No, like where's your stuff? Oh, I forgot it at home. I was like, "Well, you're not practicing today. Like, bye, goodbye, And so like for him that was a shock, like, wait, what? I could always practice beforehand. It's like, no, man, I'm trying to change the culture. It's like these are things that you have to also learn for life, And I think trying to teach like kind of those aspects, right, those characteristics into those kids as well when you coach, right? Yeah. I think those are like a lot more important sometimes, especially at an international school, than trying to win every game or trying to win a tournament. Of course, you want to do that, right? That's the ultimate goal. But I think a lot of those kids get more out of like showing up to time, being responsible, time management, all these characteristics that I think they will use for the rest of their lives, I think. And so I've tried to kind of lower my expectations that way and kind of push towards like those characteristics that they can learn outside of the classroom, right? That they won't usually learn in a classroom, that they can use then for their daily lives when they move on from high school and go into college or into the working world. So.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's what it's about, right? And it's teaching kids to be on a team. Those middle schoolers that you talked about have no ability. They've never been on a team before. So the expectations of coaches also need to be lowered, right? And that's something we have to do. And I think really when we bring in new coaches, I've struggled with it this year, bringing in some new coaches, and they're like, oh, we talked to this team. They had so many more games than us. We need to fly over here next year to get some more games. It's like you get what you get. Like that's it's what you got, man. So yeah, the lower the coach expectations for sure.
Yeah, that's something I've also like worked hard with my coaches as well. Usually like when I hire a new coach or bring in a new coach, it's like, especially if they're like American or they come from that like kind of semi-professional background where they've played at a high level, I've kind of tell them like, hey, just so you know, like this is not what you think it is, like it is in the States or whatever, like you just need to have different expectations when you go in, and usually they see that usually the first or second practice that they have the kids, and they're like, oh wow, okay, yeah, I need to work on basics of shooting or basics of dribbling for soccer, or basics of just like serving for volleyball. That's one thing that we've been really emphasizing for our middle school girls team, is like we've just kind of brought that up again, and last year they couldn't even get the ball over the net, and it's just like, well, girls, if you can't get the ball over the net, you're never gonna win at all, or even get some sort of play in.
Fun, yeah, exactly.
So we've worked on that for a year now, and so now they've actually been able to serve the ball over the net, and it's kind of like, as long as you get the ball over the net, then you can deal with the other team trying to get it back over, you know. And so just those basic things, that coaches sometimes struggle with when they first come
exactly.
and coach at an international school.
What about you, Matt? Any funny story or tips? Something that stuck out for you? Usually my funny stories I can't say like to people I don't know, especially not in a recording. So I'm not really.
I feel like a good example is like it's always fun to see too, like when the kids first get their uniforms, right? When they have those first games with international. So if you got kids who don't have a lot of experience, right, and it's like, oh my God, well, I'm on a team now. Like I get the uniform. They get so excited, and so I always just kind of like, no, you better take care of this. You represent the AISB now. See that strip on your shirt? So I love to play it up, but I'm serious. But it's also like, there's an expectation that comes with it. So that it's always exciting. I like to see that on their faces when they do get excited. It shows me they're into it and they're fired up to be on the team and excited to be there and doing the sport. So it's I guess a funny little thing, but it always makes me smile. That's for sure.
There you go. Dave, what about you? Something you remember for or just a tip for someone coming over? Let's go into that. Someone who's going to be an international AD or coach for the first time.
Yeah, I think I'd go back to Christof's point. I think really what we're trying to do here is create excellent individuals, and if we can give them the skills to be well socially rounded, to develop some leadership traits, to be good speakers, to be able to encourage others, to be resilient. I think if we're able to just sort of impart those core values within them, whatever your school's core values are, sports are the best way to really show that and to have the students demonstrate it. For me, that's always been number one focus. It's never really been the score or winning trophies. It's always more about developing the students and who they are as people.
And those opportunities to get to travel and go stay in someone else's house or a new city, and those are the memories that they're going to have, right? And what the wins and losses for sure. That's it can be, but that's a little icing on the cake, of course. But cultural opportunities that our kids get are very unique. Nick and I have been fortunate to have our own kids do that and create these friendships when they go other places and good bonds with their teammates and their coaches by traveling together. It's so much fun and such a unique atmosphere that I think it's if you're coming over for the first season, for the first time, if you're thinking about coming overseas, or that's a huge bonus. That if you got kids that are going to be involved, it's amazing.
Cool. Well, Christof, you're the youngest of all of us. I know people can't see us, but by far, you're the youngest by far, and you're the freshest AD. So, what is some kind of tip or something you would have done over again?
Yeah, great question. I think just definitely just being open. I think to also just receiving criticism sometimes, and also just like if you do like get into that AD role, like I came into the AD role I think at a very young age. I'm 29. I don't know what usually is the medium for an AD to join, but I would just say like I think I really like seeked like advice for a lot of things, especially like since I came from that American background and I kind of knew it from the American side of like, hey, this is how it should be, this is what I want it to be in a sense. But then like coming to the international like schools and just culture and just also being like, okay, it's different. It's not as competitive as it is in the States, but how can we still be competitive? How can we still, like Dave said, is still bringing those characteristics of like teamwork and everything to those kids, and also just making an experience for those kids. And like Matt said, I think a big thing is also just traveling in a sense, and that's one thing that I loved as well. Is traveling. So I guess my tip is in a sense just be open and also just take advice where you can. Talk to ADs such as Nick, Matt, and Dave who have been in it for a very long time, and just bounce ideas off of them. And I think a lot of my things that I've done at schools has been from people who have been in the industry a lot longer and have been in that, especially international schools, a lot longer. So that's what I would say. And then trying to find your own niche, like just try to find what works well for you. And yeah, like I said, just trying to see where you can improve in small increments from year to year. I don't think you can make that big jump from one year to the next, especially if you're trying to change the culture of a school, or if you're coming into a school like pretty new and you want to compete at a high level. I think you just have to be open with seeing like continuous progress over a longer period of time than trying to find progress right in the immediate time over like 1 year or whatever. A great example of that is like my middle school girls volleyball team. Is the development that they've had within 1 year is amazing. Like I said, like before they weren't even able to serve a ball over the net, and now they're able to do that and actually, dig and set and everything as well. And so just developing that kind of skills as well, so that once we have those skills kind of set in for middle school, then they're ready to go for the high school, and then we can start competing, I think. And so that's my tip I would give.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to summarize all of that before we get to the wrap up. So if anyone comes over to be an AD for the first time, be prepared to have little or no competition, terrible athletic ability, frequent moving in and out of families, not enough practices or games, but be ready to build some absolute great kids at the same time. That sums it up, right?
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell.
Nicest kids.
No, it's great. Teasing, but it's all aspects of the truth there for sure. Kukri are a global multi-sport clothing brand specializing in providing the world's most prestigious schools with bespoke made and designed team uniforms for students of all standards and abilities. If you are frustrated by inconsistent colors, branding, costs, and sizing across your school's uniforms, then it's time to discuss an offering where every sport is available, from softball to soccer, for male and female athletes at rates to suit your budget. To find out how Kukri could elevate the apparel of your student athletes to a professional level email the team at contact@cookerysports.com. A dedicated sales manager will offer you a quote today. Mention this ad and receive a special offer on your coach or PE staff order. All right, well, let's wrap it up a little bit. Dave and or Christof, any of you want to share some future plans? Dave, are we going to see you sometime soon around the world?
Yeah, it's interesting. This past year, I applied for a couple of specific jobs, but I'm still staying here in the States for right now. We'll look again in October, see what jobs come out on Search Associates, and have a look around. It's tricky for us right now because our kids are at that age where we've brought them back to the States where they've never lived before. They're both U.S. citizens, and they're loving it here. They're having such a great time, and so they're at that age where it's going to be hard for us to just go, all right, kids, we're packing up, we're moving to wherever. So we'll definitely look around. We'll definitely see what's out there. But we maybe wait until they've graduated, and then it's just me and Kelly, and we can do what we want.
Cool. All good options. What about you, Christof? Got some big plans this summer or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'll be heading back to the U.S. Due to personal reasons. Just felt like my time at international kind of community has come to an end, and I'm definitely looking forward to moving back to U.S. But I think I'll only be there for a short time, as I do love the international schools and just culture of it all. And so I'll definitely be looking possibly in the next 3 or 4 years to hopefully move again abroad, whether that's Africa, Europe again, or Asia, or South America. I'm really open to going anywhere, and I like to travel too, so I'm actually open to going anywhere. So
Awesome.
Those are my plans for right now. I haven't really gotten anything finalized yet in the U.S., but definitely keeping my options open. Have applied to a few different jobs as well, so we'll see where that goes. Not all in AD, some just specifically in sports like Parks and Rec or YMCA, kind of just focused on sports aspect of it. But definitely looking to come back out and be in international waters, I guess you could say,
Cool.
in the next few years. So, yeah.
Well, Christof, I can say, having worked with you, I think you'll be just fine, and whoever gets you will be lucky to have you, and wish you all the best for wherever you end up. And maybe we'll see you again somewhere down the road in an international school nearby, or somewhere in another region, in case one of us ends up in another place too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I won't be able to work for a little bit. I'll have 2 kids in college next year, so I'm here for sure 1 more year. Can't afford to move anywhere. So a little bit ahead of you, Christof, but
Right. Well, it's been fun working with you guys as well. I really appreciate, like I said, like all your advice and just working with you. It's been a blast the last 5-6 years that I've been involved and stuff, and just these last 2 years, just being part of DVAC and being part of that kind of group of ADs as well. You guys definitely have something going there, and definitely it's cool to see how it's grown over the last few years, and so I hope it continues to grow, and just to we'll stay in contact, and we'll definitely stay in contact. And if I'm ever Europe side or wherever again, I'm sure we'll meet up or whatever.
Absolutely. So. And you can put podcast guest on your resume now. You can put the link right in there and add that resume build. No, just teasing, but no, it was great to have you on before you go, and thanks to both of you. Dave as well, being on number 14. Some really good tips and some good things about what it's like to be an AD coming from another place. So cool.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. And wherever you are out there, we hope you have a smooth ending of your school year as we head into the final month or so of the school year. For us here in Budapest, we've got 1 more week this week and next week for our sports season. And then we're wrapping it up before we head into the home stretch of June. So safe travels to everybody as well, and smooth endings. And we'll see you next time on the Globetrottin ADs.
Until next week, this has been another episode of the Globetrottin ADs.